Good morning. My name is Deitra Stover Matthews. I am the CEO of the R.A.M Foundation. R.A.M is an acronym for Reading Arts Mathematics. I am also a community leader and former state lobbyist, and I'm on S.T.A.R.V.E Talk with J Haleem.
I'm in the studio with J Haleem.
I'm in the studio with J Haleem.
I am in the studio with J Haleem.
I am in the studio with J Haleem. I'm in the studio with J Haleem.
You are now in the studio with J Haleem.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy J Haleem. We are back for another amazing episode of S.T.A.R.V.E Talk. You guys know what S.T.A.R.V.E stands for: stand tall and reclaim victory every day. And when I think about that acronym, this young lady right here, who I'm going to be introducing you to, she walks it, she embodies it. And more importantly, not for herself, but she wants it for other people. That's one of the reasons why we want her here on S.T.A.R.V.E Talk. So this is my sister. If you follow me, you know we've talked and we've done these talks on different platforms, but she's no stranger to any platform that I have. It's my sister, Deitra Stover Matthews. Deitra, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, J Haleem. It is my pleasure. It is my honor to join you. We haven't done this in a while.
I know, right?
Yeah, so it's my pleasure.
It's funny. I told somebody else, I said, all of our conversations need to be recorded because it's always healthy conversation, even when we disagree. You know, we can learn from each other. And I think people need to see that more than it's somebody this side and that side. Two things can be true at the same time, you know, or people can have opinions that's different and still be okay. It doesn't mean that you have to be enemies and stuff like that. So I do appreciate that with us. But tell us how you doing. How you doing this morning? What's going on?
I'm actually good. You know, I have over the years, I've really tried to embrace when someone asks me how I'm doing. I try to give them the honest answer. I'm good. I think I told you before we started recording, I have a little bit of an earache, and I joke I'm too old to have an earache, but I have a little bit of an earache. But for the most part, Jay, I'm pretty good. Really, I really have nothing to complain about. And as you always say, and nobody wants to hear it anyway, right? So
Exactly.
So I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited because, you know, it's the summertime coming up and, you know, you got R.A.M Foundation. So I'm excited to talk to you about the R.A.M Foundation because this is something that was birthed by your mom over 14 years ago. And then now you are the CEO. You know, what does that mean to you when everybody talks legacy, but you guys are living it?
You know, it means a lot. And I cannot honestly say, and I'm certain my mom and I haven't had this conversation. I don't believe that my mom, my dad, they're the founders of the R.A.M Foundation. I don't believe they created the organization to leave it to me, right? I don't think they had legacy in mind, but going deeper though, being part of their legacy, I embrace and I took on the R.A.M Foundation because my parents have instilled in me the importance of to whom much is given, much is required, or much is expected. And I live that every single day. My mother used to always say that if your neighbor is not doing well, then neither are you.
Wow.
And so I think that's a deeper legacy, but the organization as a body, I don't think that my parents created it. I think they created it to answer a call. And you know the story, but I'll just be a little brief. My mother had a nightmare, and she was having a series of nightmares, and they were so vivid and very graphic, full color nightmares. And basically, she was seeing children during the summer months, you know, when kids are home a lot, especially in some of our underserved, under-resourced, very often underrepresented communities here in Columbia. She really saw that kids, what they do, you know, they're kids, they're curious. And so so she didn't like what she saw in her dream, and it burdened her. And so she just kind of went to Christ and said, what does this mean? And it is provide a safe haven. And not only provide a safe haven, make sure it's fun, make sure you're addressing the whole child, make sure you're addressing the social and wellness needs of these children. And not only the children, because you're doing this, you're also addressing the social and wellness need of the entire family. So the R.A.M Foundation was birthed 14 years ago, and we've been providing a free summer camp for 14 years.
That's amazing. You know, the funny thing is you said something that was even more, profound to me when you said that with your mom's quote about the neighbors. Why don't people think like that about if the neighbor's not doing well, you're not doing well? People don't think like that no more.
And that, you're right. And I struggle with trying to analyze the psychology behind that, like why don't they? Because, it's simple. Like I'm looking outside my window and I can see my mailbox and I can see my neighbor's mailbox. So imagine if we're going to the mailbox at the same exact time and I recognize that something is clearly wrong with my neighbor. Am I just going to turn around and walk away and go back in the house? You know what I'm saying? And it really, and that may be very simplistic, but imagine, imagine doing that. And that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're watching our neighbor struggle, whether it's with so many different issues, and we go back in the house and we turn around, we turn around and go back in the house and we only care about ourselves. I don't know. I am struggling. I am really still trying to figure out why that is.
Yeah, it's that was, like I said, I don't hear those type of things no more. Cause growing up in especially in the Black community, we were borrowing sugar and
Yes.
butter or something like that. And sadly, I know where I come from. You were talked about by some people, they always come get sugar and stuff like that. But actually, that was a thing of love because you might not need sugar. We might need the small things, but we might have protected your family, from when somebody was trying to take your daughter or something like that. And it evens out, just being that community. But none of that is like whatever's going on, that's over there. That's their house. That's not our house. And so that's kind of crazy. So we got to figure out a way to get past that point because it sucks. But one way, like, with the R.A.M Foundation, you guys talked about education. Now, your mom's a former educator. Well, she's still educating. She's never going to stop educating, but she's a retired educator. You're an educator. What role does education play in the future of, our community and as far as us growing in our community? What role does education play?
It remains a huge role. And I have to admit, I am concerned with, as a mom, as someone who has worked in the profession, continues to work in the profession, and with the R.A.M Foundation. Jay, I am concerned. You were there. I recently ran for city council. And I would often be on the campaign trail and I would talk about the children. You know that my favorite quote is, by Frederick Douglass, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I say that all the time because I intimately understand that children will one day become adults. And, I would talk about kids and people would say, why aren't you running for school board? And I would often say it's because as a former educator, I recognize that we're not going to solve the ills and woes that we see in our classroom every single day and the challenges that we see in our classroom every single day just by, dealing with a budget or vetting, the latest curriculum. I truly believe it's an economic issue. You can have the best school board leaders, you can have, 10 social workers in the school, but you're still not addressing the fact that you have so many children coming into our classrooms shouldering the burden of whether, they're uncertain whether or not they're going to have a roof over their head, clean water coming out of their pipes, if water is coming out of their pipes at all, electricity. And so many of these kids are shouldering these adult burdens. And oftentimes, no matter how motivated or brilliant a child is, they're not mature enough to handle some of those really, really heavy adult issues.
Yeah.
And so I am very, very concerned. So I ran, because, and my platform was economic, economy, employment, environment, and education, because I believe that those four intimately intersect with each other.
Yeah.
And because I truly do care about, improving the quality of life for not only for children, but for the entire family. And I understand as a mother and as a former classroom teacher who watched this very closely, to improve the quality of life for kids, you first got to improve the quality of life for their parents or their caregivers.
Wow. It's amazing that, again, some people don't talk like that. It's just like school has become so routine. It's just like, send them to school. All right, they're done with school now, figure it out. At what point does the miseducation be, a light be shined on the miseducation as opposed to just the regular education? Because there's a lot of things that's being missed in the school system, and just the whole hierarchy, it's so outdated. So how do we shine a light on the miseducation?
Yeah. And, even when I was in college, so I graduated from college, you and I are close in age, graduated from undergrad 22 years ago this month. And I remember towards the end of college, there were many advocates, sounding the alarm about the importance of financial education, financial literacy in our classroom. When we were in school, we had home economics. We had, we were exposed to the industrial arts. We had carpentry and
Wood
shop.
shop.
We called it, wood shop. We called it shop, for short. And so those things were pulled out of our education, and then it went so far as, now we're on the other side of it, and folks have been trying to, just sound an alarm. We need to do financial education. We need to do civic education. Jay, a lot of people don't understand how a piece of legislation is passed. We will, this is something I'm very passionate about, being a former lobbyist for the state of South Carolina, or in the state of South Carolina. We'll get mad about a pothole, but we don't understand how, and how resolutions on the city level, the municipal level, or a bridge on the state and federal level, how legislation is passed in order for those issues to be addressed. So, I know that's kind of going around your question about how do we.
Good. You're right on point.
Okay. Oh yeah. So, and again, like I was telling you with my platform, I see the intersections of education and and all of those those other issues. And so that does, so to my previous point, that does make me a little concerned. But I could talk all day about politics, because I have been able to be a part of recognizing an issue, creating or drafting or composing a piece of legislation, getting it. And I'm sorry. This is through a state lens, getting a piece of legislation from someone's heart, thought, mind to the whole legislative process. And it is sometimes a bit cumbersome. And a lot of people just don't understand that there are so many steps before a piece of legislation lands on the desk of the executive of the state, and the governor of the state.
Yeah, one of the things that I also add to that, because I agree with everything that you said, is the law as well. Period. Like, educating about the law is like, why a kid has to be 22 and go to law school to start learning about the law, when this is like everything that's needed in school for the rest of your life is not taught. It's just like they're teaching a whole bunch of things. Like, once you get past like 8th grade, it's a lot of things that's being taught that only a certain few kids are going to need. Like, calculus 5 is not going to go unless you want to be, an engineer or something like that, or a scientist or whatever. Like, we're not talking about, kid, you're going to need credit. We're not talking about the law. We're not talking about politics, but it's literally you got to vote at 18. They don't even know what they're voting for. And so what you do is you vote for who your mom voted for, or your dad voted for, or the community. I remember getting registered in college. And I this is the funniest thing that happened to me. I just knew back in those days, I was voting for George Bush II. It was George Bush and Al Gore. You could not tell me from all the ladies from the neighborhood who was grabbing me, coming to the cafeteria, grabbing us out there, ushering us in to vote, that Al Gore wasn't going to win. You voting for Gore, right? It was all stuff. I don't know that was rules. They was vote for Gore. They wasn't supposed to be telling us who to vote for, but they was telling us that. We did it, and sure enough, I'm like, South Carolina, Gore lost in South Carolina. Everybody I saw, as far as my eye can see, voted for Gore. You know, but I didn't understand how politics work. I didn't understand what was a Republican state and what was a red or blue state. I didn't understand any of that stuff. And you still got my vote, which is precious. You know, you still got me to go ahead and vote. I didn't even know what about Al Gore. He could have been the worst of the worst. I haven't the slightest idea. And this is what kids are shoved into. And these are things they're going to be dealing with for the rest of their lives. But you spend your formidable years in school getting educated. And you can still go to 4-year college and not learn, because if you want a business degree or, you know, a certain type of degree, they're not going to talk about that either. So what do we do about this miseducation? Because we're missing the boat. Like literally, we're missing the boat.
So I'll tell you all of those, you know, one community, one small organization like the R.A.M Foundation at a time. Civic engagement, civic education is a part of our curriculum. It has been for a very, very long time. Our kids from the age of 4 years old, the kids that we have every single year, they are taught how a bill becomes a bill on the state level. They're taught how, a few years ago, actually, we used a curriculum, I cannot remember the name of it, but we used a curriculum where the student or the campers were able to discuss among themselves and vote among themselves on an issue that was near and dear to them. And, you know, it was something, I can't remember exactly what it was, Jay, but they decided what the issue and voted amongst themselves as campers. And we had 2 different groups, and they were able to present it to some of our city council leaders. And so they were exposed to how an issue is addressed through resolution on the municipality level, or how an issue is just addressed just by showing up at a city council meeting, putting your name on the agenda and voicing your concerns.
I love that.
And so we've been doing that in regards to the law. You know, we've been leaning on some community leaders and some community partners to come in and talk about, you know, that profession. And so much so, we've been doing this for years with the R.A.M Foundation, is that our kids actually get the chance to participate in a mock trial. And some of our campers are jurists. They're part of a jury, not jurists. They're part of the jury. Some of the campers are, you know, they are part of the prosecution team, and then they're probably the part of the defense team, and the others are in the audience. But we actually get on a bus and we actually go to the courthouse.
Wow.
And it is, and so how do we do that? You know, we do this for now, you know, maybe one organization at a time, one community at a time. It is my goal, and you know this because I've shared with you, it is my goal for the R.A.M Foundation to be in the community, not just for, you know, 6 weeks out of the summer. It is part of our vision, our goal for the R.A.M Foundation to be in the community and providing these opportunities and these services year round.
Yeah.
Year round. We are eventually hoping to be able to do that. And so, you know, maybe the R.A.M Foundation can serve as a template, and we put this template and use it, and hopefully encourage some of our school board leaders to put it in our classrooms every single day. So we'll see. Stay tuned on that.
I love it.
Stay tuned on that.
I love it. So you touched on economics. You touched on economics. So again, another miseducation, because we get it. Some parts are cut and dry. You know, you get a job, get a good paying job, and be able to, you know, take care of your family. But there's a lot of underlying scenarios that nobody talks about, at least enough, that these parents that guys are serving are hurting from economically. And some of it is systemic, some of it is generational. So touch on some of those things, those economic issues that you guys are trying to tap into and fix?
Well, so personally, another reason I ran for city council is because, first of all, one of the greatest honors and privileges of my life was being able to serve for 19 plus years as a military spouse. So I've been able to, born and raised here in Columbia, South Carolina, but I've been able to live in, so many different geographical areas around the country. So I've seen what works. I've seen that what didn't work so well. And in regards to economics locally, and maybe, and on state, and I often tell people when you're talking about economy and employment, I always say they're different, because when I talk about employment, I filter it through that lens. I say employment is making sure that people have one job that pays a livable wage.
Yeah.
The economy is, from a policy standpoint or for a legislative standpoint, is, here in Columbia, South Carolina, making sure that we have industries in the state of South Carolina that also pay one wage, a livable wage. And when I say livable wage, where people are comfortably able to buy a house or rent a house and, take care of all of their basic needs off of one job. But economics, making sure that we are, and as a city and state, creating the environment and the culture where you have industries, corporate industries coming into the state or the city, where there's an opportunity for upward mobility, where people literally back in the day, Jay, people could start in the mailroom and work their way up to the 15th floor in 20 years. Yep. We don't have an industry. We don't have very many industries like that here in Columbia or the state of South Carolina. And while I am a huge cheerleader for small businesses, they are the cornerstone of every central city in the country. But small businesses, for the most part, are not able to provide jobs, employment that pay livable wages. Yeah. And so going back to the education point and how those intersect, you will have a parent who now has 2 or 3 jobs because, unfortunately, the city or the state has made that the economic tool for employment in the city or state. It's small business, but the employees are having to carry 2 and 3 jobs in order to make ends meet. And so guess what? They're not home.
Absolutely
you
right.
know what I'm saying? They're not home. They're not able to go to the parent teacher conference. I mean, just the unrealism. I mean, just so unrealistic for us to expect a parent who is working 2, 3 jobs to attend, parent teacher conferences. And I know, Jay, even when I am stressed out as a parent, when I'm stressed out, I'm not the best mother. You know what I'm saying? So it just, I don't know. I would have hoped had I been successful in my run, that would have been one of the largest priorities, is how to incentivize, how to create an environment and culture where you have industries. Think about IBM, or you had like Charlotte, that's the banking industry, bringing an industry into the city where some of our college graduates, they come here, they stay here 4 years, and they're out of here
immediately.
Right. And so just creating a industry pathway that allows more and more and more people to have one job that pays a livable wage.
One thing that I think that gets overshadowed is that people don't believe that or understand that economics is a lifestyle. It's not just, something you do. And I don't think that lifestyle it's like, we have it, you guys figure it out, or we just don't have it. When you talked about IBM and places coming here, it's been that lifestyle of not having that. And some people have been able to flourish in it, but the majority haven't. And the minority has been okay with the majority not being able to flourish. And so how do we convince people that it's better to have this upward mobility type of lifestyle? Because that opens up that information floodgate, because all it is information. Like you said, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur right now, but small businesses have more of a responsibility to your community to than just to make you a bunch of money. What have you created for your community? What jobs have you created? How have you given back? How, you know, what have you done in your community? What that's your lifestyle? Like, okay, once I make my $1 million from these people off the backs of these people, or they support me to that level, how do I give to my local politician? How do I give to R.A.M Foundation to make sure that the kids are being taken care of? How do I send my kid to a place like that? It's beautiful that you guys are free, but most people aren't. So, but still, how do you, if you can't find a free place, how do you, you know, invest in that as opposed to taking a kid away from the place where, you know, they're putting money into your business. They affording you to live a certain kind of way. All of these things are a lifestyle. And I just see, it seems like some people are okay with not giving up that information and letting other people just fall by the wayside.
Yeah, I know your listeners, they're probably like, man, they talk all the time. That is something that you have showed concern for a very, very long time. You and I talk about the book, The Miseducation of a Negro. Is that the one?
Yeah, Carter G. Woodson.
And Carter G. Wilson, you often wonder, you know, when you see community leaders and you know, they say that they've read the book and you're like, really? Like, really?
Yes. I was upset when I read that book. Literally, I told you this. I read it myself, and then I set my family down and read that book to my family, literally in one day. And then I hearkened back to the people who I met and said that they read this book and who told me I should read the book years ago. And I said, there's no way. Ain't no way in hell you read this book and you acting like the way you act, because I was changed ever since. And I was floored how you can talk about 1930, how churches is lined up across the street from each other. And I still see it in 2020, 2021, 22, stuff like that. And how Black people would, you know, not help each other when it comes to their businesses. And he's talking about this over almost 100 years ago. And it's still relevant to today. What are we doing? What are we doing for real?
That's something you and I, we you know, I'm sitting here and I'm nodding and I'm amening, and I have that same question.
You know, the information is out there. And look, anybody's our age has heard the quote. You want to hide something from somebody, they say something else. But you want to hide something from a Black person, put it in the book, right? You've heard that. So that doesn't do anything to you and say, you know what, I'm still not going to read because, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and perpetuate this, you know, the stereotype, because you can't blame it on nobody else. You can't blame it on the white man or somebody else, man, any other man. It said nobody's stopping you from proving them wrong. They even have audio books now, but the information is there. Google it. You know, the information is there. By the time you read a couple paragraphs on Google a day, you're a reader. You know, after 6 months, you're really a reader. So what are we doing?
I don't know. And I tell you, it starts early, you know, just the apathy, you know, I had a 12-year-old, there was a 12-year-old Black boy, I guess about 4 or 5 years ago. But Jay, he was brilliant. I remember him, somebody had laid some beats down, right? And he rapped over it. And it sounded like poetry. He was 12, Jay. I mean, it was just amazing. And I told him how amazing it was. And he thanked me, but then he initiated a conversation about, Miss Matthews, thank you. He said, I know you tell us that we can be anything we want to be. I know you tell us, you bring all of these people to come in and talk to us. He said, and I know that you believe it. He was just like, I don't believe that. That's not going to happen to me.
Wow.
He was like, that's not going to happen to me. He was like, I'm going to be he said, I'm going to be just like my daddy or just like my uncle, either dead or in jail. This was like 4 years ago.
Wow.
This was like 4 years ago. And I was just, the conversation started with me like, that was amazing. Like, I'm not a fan of the new rap these days because it's just like, you know, it's like 15 words on a page and it's just, they just repeat those 15 words. Like, he literally was like like a old school lyricist like Nas, or where it's or a song, or it's 10 pages long, and he was just rapping, and it just came out and sounded like poetry. And he was like, that's not going to happen to me though. He was
Wow.
like, so it starts early.
How
And
did you
so
feel
by the
about that?
time, I never told you that story.
No, how did you feel when he said that?
It broke my heart,
Oh man.
Jay. It broke my heart. And what's so interesting is that year was the year I decided to finally leave education, because I felt like I could make a larger impact working on the policy side, because I had two big instances in that year, that one being one, and another one with another 12-year-old black boy sharing something with me. But that where, that they really truly don't believe that they can be what someone says, and that they can be. By the time they're adults, they are just walking through life, just completely apathetic.
Mm.
And so it's unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. And I don't, you and I talk about this. I'm not sure if I have the answer on how to address that, how to get the education into the ears and hearts and minds of folks, and move them from apathy to advocacy, or, an advocacy for their own life.
Well, you talked about your mom and her dream or nightmares. And one of the major things that she spoke about in that space was protecting the kids. So what does protection look like now going forward? How do we get started? I mean, nobody knows the complete answer, but how do we effectively try to protect our children going forward?
Unfortunately, we only have our kids in the R.A.M Foundation 6 weeks. Again, we hope that one day we hope to have them year round. Going back to my mom, her first thing was providing a safe haven,
Mm-hmm.
where a kid knows that they're safe. Children know that they are loved. And when I say they know that they are loved, the R.A.M is a space where we welcome hugs,
Yeah.
the kids are fed, and we hope to provide that sense of protection in those 6 weeks that we have them. I remember, and I know I keep bringing these stories and these anecdotes to the conversation, but I remember one of my first years of being a classroom teacher. And I remember one of my colleagues, one of my peers, she told me that I was going to have a difficult year because I didn't yell at the kids. I didn't, scream at them. And to be honest with you, she said, you got to curse every now and then. And it ended up being one of my best years, Jay.
Wow.
And I remember asking her why. And she said, because this is the way these kids understand love.
Wow.
And I was like, what?
That's deep.
Not in my, no, but I never subscribed to that. And so when in regards to the sense of protection, I think we need to redefine as a community what protection looks like. Because this peer of mine, she looked like the two of us.
Wow. That's amazing. That's something that again, we've all been in teachers, been in a classroom with certain teachers felt like they needed to do that. And some kids thought it was funny. Some kids, got through to, some kids was like, whatever, I hear that all the time. You're not doing anything. But I've never heard somebody tell another person like, hey, this is what you need to do. Like, that's kind of crazy. I always saw it like this is where that teacher was pushed to, and they just reacted. Because I know I wasn't always the greatest student. So sometimes we push the teacher over the limit, and you see that, you're like, oh, nah, we don't want to do that. But to hear that, but then start talking about protection. One of the things that I think about is protection through prevention.
Yeah, you talk about that. Yeah.
Because it's just like your children, let's just say something you've probably saw in your childhood. I know what I've seen in my childhood. My kids at this age, my oldest is about to be 14. she hadn't seen the things I've seen in her 13, almost 14 years of life because of me preventing it. And so by that, she hadn't seen anybody smoking, using crack, and, people getting shot. I was shot at 14. So she's coming up on the age that I was shot. So like I was outside at 12 o'clock at night, 2 blocks away from home. She's in bed by 9. Sleep, not just us. She's in bed by 9, sleep. And she's still, and doesn't put up a fight. Like, hey, okay, it's time for bed. Come give us a hug. All right, good night. That's prevention. And so I think that, like you said, and this is how we've tying it all in, because that parent who's just had to stop by home to grab something to eat to go back to work that night, or had to go to work overnight and work the morning and overnight, and they're not really there, or they sleep in between the time while they're doing their homework, and it's still not making enough money. They don't have the time to take them on trips or take them to go see something to open their eyes up to certain things. It prevents them from preventing something bad from happening to their children. Now, we always have these cataclysmic things that happen, but those happen way less than just regular, oh, I dropped the ball scenario, or somebody wasn't around for that kid. So how do we put ourselves in position to prevent a lot of these things from happening to our babies?
So, I am an advocate for voter engagement. I was about to say, I hate to be that person who's like, you got to show up to vote. You got to show up to your city. But I'm going to be that person right now. I'm going to bring that perspective. Voter education and voter engagement is so, so important, because if you're in a situation, and I know you often talk about, you have to educate people on the importance of and why they should vote. So let's just take, someone gets in trouble, they have a criminal hit, and that is recycled in a community, or that's recycled or that happens very often in a family. And using that very personal issue, I like to do is say, okay, do you know that your voting impacts that experience? Because oftentimes who you elect oftentimes are the ones who are choosing those who put on robes, the judges, so, and those who you elect on the state level are the ones who are making the, state law, criminal law, or on the federal level, federal law. That, and so after we get beyond the educating and telling people why it is important to show up at the ballot and use your voice, then we have to then hold the people we voted for, we have to hold them accountable. It cannot stop just for you every 2 years or every 4 years, going into a booth, pulling a lever for someone, and then you sit back and then you just watch what they're doing or what they're not doing. You have to hold your elected leaders accountable. So I am big about voter education. I'm big about voter engagement. That's something that we all can do. If we are legally able to do so.
Are we too far gone at that point, though? Like when I'm talking about with the babies, are we too far gone at that point? I think that plays a part, and how I feel about that, especially on a local level. I'm kind of on the fence with the presidential and the national piece, but locally, I think you definitely. I totally agree. We need to be in that space, but with the babies, from a protection space, I think we're far gone by like getting to the point where they got to see a judge. Like, how do we? Unless my daughter goes really rogue, she's probably never going to see a judge. I can't say what she's going to do when she's grown, but underneath my roof, as long as I'm breathing, it's going to be hard pressed for her to be in that space, because like when she's going somewhere, I want to be a part of it. Even when she's talking about going to college, I said, wherever you go to college, we will probably have a place there so that we can be somewhere close to you to make sure that you're good.
But Jay, but it's because of something that you're doing as a parent, as a father. Mm-hmm. So this is what I'm saying. Like, a lot of times when we try to combat an issue that children, are dealing with, we try to go to the child, which is great.
Mhm.
That's what R.A.M. That's what we do. That's what we do with R.A.M. But for sustainability, I think those efforts need to be in improving the quality of life for the parent. Because what if you didn't? What I mean, you share your experience. You're about growing up, and
Mhm.
you just shared about being out at midnight at 14, and how you won't allow that now as a parent.
Mhm.
And so I think it has to be, how are we going to protect our children? Is that we're going to, for the most part, protect their parents, if that makes any sense. Like,
Makes a lot of
I
sense.
just,
That part
okay,
makes a lot
yeah.
of sense. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense because again, my parents, even though they were in their space, but they wasn't in the financial position or in the knowledgeable space to be able to give me what I can give my children. However, that's a problem. We have to give that because my kids will eventually be parents, and so will yours and other ones. And like you said, going back to the Frederick Douglass quote, it's better to build strong children than repair broken men. Some of the politicians, some of the people who are voting are broken because I know that my kids have thrived in this city because of what I've been able to do in the business space here. And so when my daughter can go to the mayor and the mayor knows my name, they're going to treat her differently. And, and when I'm willing to show up, because they're going to have encounters, but they need to see that somebody's protecting them. And so you can't stop certain encounters, but they know, hey, in school, we can call her parent and he'll show right up. I've been in a situation, my daughter was in the Mandarin immersion school, as you know, and she was frustrated with the teacher and a bunch of other kids and they were kind of like really like on some, I'm about to rebel because this lady wants us to speak Mandarin. We're frustrated and nobody's addressing that point. Well, the young lady, her and my daughter got into it with the teacher. The other young lady was suspended. Mine wasn't. And the only reason why, the lady told me, she said, because I called you and you came immediately. We couldn't get a hold of the other parent. Not saying that the parent was not fit. The parent was probably working, like we talked about, probably, working, probably at a job, couldn't take the call or whatever the case may be. But because I was in a position to be available for my child, it prevented her from getting suspended. And that she finished out the rest of the year with that teacher. That was her favorite teacher at that point because we were able to be there and have a different discussion. So I just look at the protection by prevention scenario because I think that when kids are, like you said earlier, dealing with adult problems or dealing with problems on their own, it puts them in a bad space. It makes them make bad decisions. It makes them have to follow other kids who don't know nothing, no better, but they seem like they have a better path than they do. They start to follow them, and then now they get put in bad spaces. That was me. I didn't have no parental guidance, so I'm with my friend who's 2 years older than me, and we're outside, and this happens. But if my parent was there and was like, "Hey, boy, it's 12 o'clock. You ain't even supposed to be up, let alone outside 2 blocks away." So that's one of the things I'm seeing. I totally agree with the voting piece. I think for us as adults, we definitely need to be not just voting, getting to know these people. Like you said, showing up at certain functions, being there so they know who you are, so they can respect you because these are humans. And the humans, I talked about this in the government contracting space everywhere. They deal with who they know. They're not just going to call you because you registered your business. They're not going to just call you because you voted for them. But when they see you all the time and they know that they can't just tell you anything, then they'll deal and address with your problems. But if not, they're not going to do it.
Right. And you made a decision. You made a decision that you were not going to live like this for the rest of your life. You made a decision. I share with you my mom's story. My mom made that decision that she was not going to stay in rural South Carolina. She made that decision, but her environment was teaching her something different. Her environment was teaching her that staying in that environment is okay. But at the end of the day, you know, I think my mom making that decision is a bit, especially today, I think that would be an anomaly. I'm not sure if you see yourself as an anomaly.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
And so I just keep going back on to, you know, in order to protect the child, we're going to have to protect their parents. I've had experiences going back to your, you know, your story with your daughter and her classroom mate and the teacher. I've had experiences where the parent is there, they're asleep because they just work third shift.
Yeah.
I mean, there are all kinds of reasons for parents not, you know, maybe that could have been all kinds of reasons for the, you know, the parent didn't answer the phone. And unfortunately, society judges that mother not picking up that call in a very unfair way. You know, judges without education, judges without knowledge of why that parent didn't pick up the call. So it goes back to making sure that the parents are protected. And I just think that is just intimately, related to our elected officials. You know, our elected officials create the environment and culture for any city, state. I just truly believe that. I'm sorry. I just, you know, when
it goes back to that though, you said that, and I agree in certain, and especially from a space, like I said, but education, like the parents don't know that, the children don't know that. And it's not just Black kids that don't know that. I think other kids get it faster than Black kids, but Black kids, I mean, kids don't know that. It's not in school. I mean, my kids, your kids, they go to school with white kids and other ethnicities, and they're learning the same thing. And it's not talking about politics. And if they are talking about social studies, they're talking about stuff that happened 300 years ago, 200 years ago, you know, stuff like that. Like, what about what's going on right now, or what's going to happen for them? What's going to be important for them in the next 5 or 10 years, from a political space, from an economic space, from, you know, far as law, because, you know, they're going to get tickets. They're going to get speeding tickets, and they're not going to know how to deal with that. Or now you're just dealing with this again, the protection portion. So they spend their life trying to prevent themselves from getting a speeding ticket because they're afraid on the Black side of encountering police, and on everybody's side, just the financial ramifications, and also, you know, losing your license or getting points in your license and all that stuff, the inconveniences and things of that nature. So, like, that's all the encounter we get with learning about that. Like, just avoid it. You don't ever know about it. Just avoid it so you don't ever have to deal with it.
Across states across the country are passing legislation to prevent teaching the real education. You
Really?
know, so
wow.
Huh?
Speak to that.
I mean, so I keep going to elected officials, you know, and so when we talk about, you know, putting financial literacy in our classroom, there may be a state that says and recognize in order, because when we're thinking about dominance and power, in order to keep these marginalized communities marginalized, we don't need them to learn about financial literacy. Put in the book, you know, that if you want to keep it away from them, put in the book. We don't want, and so they will literally pass legislation. This is happening in states across the country. You have our state leaders who are passing legislation that prevents schools for teaching real American history, right? So, imagine there being, and all of this, a lot of times, a lot of these legislations they're not problems in the state. These legislators are creating the problem. So imagine if a parent says, I don't want my child to learn about credit score. I don't want my child, and then they're able to attach it to something that's just outlandish. And you have a group of people who advocate and they think alike, and they go to their state leaders, and this state leader, introduces and gets a piece of legislation passed in that state that prevents them to teach about credit scores. I mean, silly stuff like this is happening across the country.
And so what do we do as a people? And this is me talking about Black people now, because nobody's preventing you from teaching your students, your children, or teaching yourself for that matter, because self-education is the best education. I mean, you have your curriculum from school from 0 to 12th grade, but self-education is the best education. So what is stopping people from teaching their children about it? And also other Black people sharing the knowledge, because everybody's not credit ignorant or financially ignorant. It's people that look like you and I are doing very, very well with themselves. What's preventing them from sharing the knowledge?
So, I mean, just selfish or competition. I've told you, and one day I'm going to find that study, Jay. I got to remember to find it, where, I mean, it's, competition and jealousy and envy, and where you have an employee who's making $50,000. You have an employee who's, I can't remember the exact numbers, but let's just say $50,000, and you have an employee that's making $100,000. They go to the employee that's making 50 and they say, I'm going to double your salary. I'm going to give you now $100,000, but you have to agree that the person who's making already making $100,000, I can also give them $50,000 too. And the study showed overwhelmingly, they had a very large sample size. Overwhelmingly, the person who's making $50,000 will say, no, I'll just keep my 50, just to prevent that person from now making $150,000.
And that is like one of the craziest things I've ever heard, because you're going to stop your $50,000 because somebody else is going to make $50,000. But I believe it. It.
Right. And then in reverse. And then now this is not a study, but this is just something just being a human being and walking this earth, somebody who's making $150,000, this exceptionalism, I'm the only one in the room. I'm the only one that has a seat at the table. And for some reason, they become so territorial. And, and they don't want to, you have a seat at the room, but when you have a seat at the room, you're supposed to be walking in there with an arm of chairs with you.
Yeah.
You can't be the only one in the room. But for some reason, we have this, and I harken it back to jealousy, envy, and competition.
And also miseducation. And then miseducation, because you've heard the people say you can't bring Tyrone to the company picnic. And for me, I think I agree with that in certain instances, because Tyrone might not know how to act in that space, but it's still your responsibility to create your own situation. When you are the chosen person, again, like we talking about, looking at myself as an anomaly. In my family, I do at the time, because coming up with my grandmother being in the system since the 60s, and so she raised 8 children of her own through the system, and then me being the first grandchild and graduating high school and college, and then the next 6 grandchildren didn't even graduate high school. Like, that's somewhat of an anomaly. Now the rest of them are starting to, do their thing, but it was a while. But it was my job to go while I'm out here, bring it back and show them. So I literally, once those other 6, the next one was with me by the time I was 24 years old. He was 16 and I was 24, and I had him stand with me and teaching him. And I actually got him into college. Now, he didn't graduate, but I got him out of high school, which was the step. And the next one got out of high school. His younger sister was the next one to graduate high school. Now his baby brother is on a full ride to Duke academically. So it takes you to bring them out and show them. And so I couldn't take him with me. But the knowledge, that's what I can take back with me, is the knowledge. So you've seen a room, you can say, hey, I saw a place that looked way better than where we live in. And people are doing things. You didn't have to fight for the food like we fight for the food over here. It was more than we needed. And I ate my fill, and it was still more than enough. Let's set this up. But people still keep that information to themselves. That's the craziest thing to me.
It is, and I will tell you, and so and you and I have had these conversations about, sometimes there are people who want to share the information, but it is not welcomed. Yeah. It's a bit of psychology.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest with you, sometimes I feel like it's like psychological acrobats. I mean, it's just so much. I mean, seriously, it can be exhausting sometimes. But I think, I mean, you hear it from through that space that you just shared, or that through that lens you just shared, and then you also hear where there are people who want to give the information, like we want, there are people who want to give the information, but it's not welcome for so many different reasons. So there's this.
Yeah, you gotta take a deep breath.
I have to take a deep breath because I immediately think about my husband. Thinks it's just so it's simple. He says, if you look at our traumatic history, all of that, just the 400 years of servitude. My husband, he thinks it's, and I think about it. So I took a deep breath because it just kind of I just quickly got in my mind. But he says, if you look at the traumatic history, 400 years of servitude, and what that did to our minds, and then how the created system made us compete with each other for survival a lot of times. Yeah. My husband believes it's now in our DNA. So my husband believes is that somehow we're going to have to rewrite our DNA. And
I'll tell you that, not saying those words, but I always say we got to stop playing this game, because I always use the acronym, or not the acronym. I use the example of, if you play Monopoly, there's nowhere in the world you're going to sit at the table with somebody playing Monopoly and watch them go around the board 400 times, then get in the game. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So we still coming out trying to play this game. Now we're displaced, and so we're still living up underneath their rule in some way, shape, form, or fashion, because of, we just don't know. But it's people that live and die for years, never voting, never doing any of this stuff, never participating in any of these things. And it's not affecting them directly at all. And they've lived and died. And there's a lot of people, and they look like us. So you can actually put yourself in a situation where you're kind of off on your own island. We watched the Jewish community do it, watched some of the Asian community do it, where they're like, I get it, but we're over here with ours. And we're going to create a church, and that church is going to have a school, and all our students are going to go through school within our synagogue, and they're going to go off to the best colleges, and then they're going to go and be doctors, lawyers, accountants, what have you, because they've studied how much money they make. I mean, like real plans, not playing the lottery. Like, okay, maybe this kid will be all right, maybe this kid will be like, no, this is what's going to happen, and we're going to have each family is going to have 3 kids that's going to do the same thing, and then they're going to have kids that's going to do the same thing. And before you know it, 100 years go by, and you see what we see. I always talked about that, right? But you know what we get mixed up at? Who's going to get left behind?
Oh yeah, and you believe that is a necessity.
Yes.
Yes,
Everybody can't go. Everybody can't go.
Yeah,
that's a big deal, because again, some people it is in their DNA, and some people are not going to change. Some people are going to go out and stumble back to the village, and you should let them back in, especially if their mind has changed. But you got to get the kids and the people who with it. That's it. And then you got to start creating that situation. And then after 50 years, 30 years, however many years ago, a couple generations go by, you start to see this thing works, and then you can actually do something. But until then, some people got to be let go. You cannot say everybody can go. That's just how I feel about
it. I mean, I don't disagree. I definitely don't disagree. And the space I'm in right now, like the mental, emotional space I'm in right now, like I'm probably kind of in that mode, like actively in that mode right now, So I definitely don't disagree, because I mean, it to a point, I said this before. I mean, it's exhausting.
Definitely.
I can't want something more for you than you want for yourself.
Amen. Amen.
So I definitely don't disagree. definitely don't disagree.
Well, the name of this show is Starve Talk, right? And I've had a few shows, but this one is near and dear to my heart because of the acronym: Stand Tall and Reclaim Victory Every Day. So we've had some great conversation about some very important topics. So when you think about that acronym, what does that mean to you? Stand tall and reclaim victory every day.
Oh, I wish you would have given me that question ahead of time. You know, I'm a measured thinker. Stand tall and reclaim victory every day. You know, that's a hard one. I mean, that's really hard. And that I think what's making it difficult for me is the everyday part, right? Is the everyday stand tall and reclaim victory every day.
But I'll
And
help.
so,
I can tell you what I think. Maybe it'll help you out.
well, because I think why I'm struggling is because I'm trying to measure what victory looks like.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm struggling with it. It's because I'm trying to measure it. And not be so cliche also and say that even the small victories are victories, which is true, you know. But what does standing tall and reclaiming victory every day? I'm in a bit of I've made a lot of pivots in my life, Jay, and you know a lot about them. And I'm in another one. This probably is one of the largest transitions in my life that I have ever made. And so I think I'm still in the space to figure that out, to figure out what that means, reclaiming my victory every single day. Because, right, so we're talking to your I Won't Starve family right now, right? So in the bit of transparency, there is something that I have to do, and there's a sacrifice that I have to make for the next few years that is necessary for my family, right? Mm-hmm. And so I measure reclaiming victory a little differently than I did 2 years ago, and I know by the way I'm going to look at it and measure it 2 years from now. And so, and I know I'm talking all over the place because that's a hard question for me right now, particularly as I'm in a mental, emotional, and physical space of transition right now.
But it's about everything we talked about, though. Even all of the topics that we discussed. It don't have to be just you personally, but just what does that look like? Like I was saying, for me, it's the decision itself. Because a lot of time we've taught in jobs, we're taught in life, we're like, what's the fallback plan? What's the fallback plan? What's the fallback plan? So we're not really making a true decision because you always got some fallback. And I think that as people, we need to make that decision. And then the reclaiming victory every day is fighting for that decision every single day, standing tall. You're resolute. This is the decision I've made. Yes, it's going to be hurdles. It's going to be roadblocks. It's going to be traffic down that road. Yes. Can I take a detour? Yes, but there's no plan B. There's no turning back from that destination. Now, it's going to be other destinations once you reach this one, but can we really truly say, since we've got out of slavery, since we got in the situation that we had a destination that we were going for and we actually got to it, maybe Martin can say that, maybe Martin Luther King, he's not here to see it, but he did say it. Malcolm X can't say that, Marcus Garvey can't say it. We haven't made a decision and stood on it and fought for it and got to a certain point so that we can see where the next point for us to take our people and the next point for us to take our people. And I know I lived that personally when I said, I'm not going to live like the way I live. 15 people in a 3-bedroom, glorified 3-bedroom apartment with 1 bathroom. I'm not going to live in a space where we have roaches, and my grandmother had to leave the light on to make sure the roaches don't come and get your food, or, you know, every 6 months, instead of somebody just coming to spray in your house, they got to bomb your house to make sure, because it's 3 different families, and to make sure it's not overrun with insects or rodents or things of that nature. Like, I made a choice, I made a decision to continuously do that. And just as a testimonial moment, I just put my son in private school. And people don't realize, and I had to realize, this will be the first Washington to go to private school. My child. I never even dreamed that that was what I was going to be doing when I said I wanted to do that for my children. But now, knowing that I really changed the landscape of my family, now it's time for the next one. It's time to, hey, how do I get them to have this type of stuff on their mind? How do I make sure that they take us to the next place? How do I do that? But standing tall and reclaiming victory, reclaiming that decision, fight for that decision every single day. That's where it came for me.
Well, I'm going to carbon copy it. I'm going to take it. I mean, because as you're talking, you know, that's what it is for me. Like I said, like in this period of transition for me, and what the next 2 years is going to, like, I made a decision to be in this space for 2 years that I'm in right now. That's a decision. And so I now have to stand tall every single day and work and fight for the for this reason of doing what I'm doing. Like so I'm going to think about it some more, but I hear you, and it inspired me to say, well, that's the same for me. Yeah. Like, I made the decision now. I don't know if, for personal reasons, if I have given a lot of thought to where I would like to be in the next 10 years. And I think probably it's because of, you know, what I just went through running for office. That took a lot. That took a lot out of me. That took a lot out of my family. And so I think my picture of what I, you know, and the reason I say next 10 years, because we talk about the next generation, all that type of stuff too, is just that I'm having to rethink all of that right now. I'm having to rethink all of that and what that looks like right now. But I'm standing in what you said. Like, I made a decision, and it's going to be, you know, there are going to be some challenges. I'm sure there are probably going to be some doubts, but I have to stand in this decision that I have made and work and fight every single day, so that I can stay closely connected to this decision that I've made.
I think that's great. I mean, because you're an athlete. For people who don't know, you're a former athlete and a championship athlete. And so I know it pisses you off to see the participation trophies. And something, you know what I'm saying?
God. Dude, Jay, for real, and Caroline, the girls they will tell you, like, I'm supposed to congratulate you because you put on a uniform?
And that's the thing. So what has happened, I use that as an example because what has happened is they keep moving the needle to make us feel like we're winning, and we're not winning. It's like, so what is a real win? What is completion looking like? Not because I participated in school. If I didn't graduate, I did not win at school. You know, if I did not graduate, I did not win in college. You know, if that's because that's the game you playing. If you went someplace else, you wasn't playing that game, fine. But if that's the game you playing, the goal is to win, and winning is graduating. And that's the decision you made. Stand tall in your decision and fight for it until you have to go to the next thing. But getting to the next thing means it's over. You've done it. You've completed something. And so that's what we have to start doing. That's what I mean about lifestyle. And the last thing, because I know we got to go, but one thing I want to touch on is collaboration. How does collaboration, first of all, what does it mean to you, and how does collaboration play a part in going forward to have a prosperous future?
Collaboration is, it's necessary, to be honest, Jay. It's necessary. I mean, in the professional space, I know no other thing but collaboration. And in the personal space, whether it's collaboration with your spouse, collaboration with the tribe and community that you create, it is everything. It is absolutely necessary. I don't believe there's anybody there. If someone tells you that they have made it in life or they have achieved some high level of measurable, intangible success, and they say they've done it by themselves, they are lying.
Straight up.
And so I actually believe, it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I know you're gonna I know your definition of collaboration is a little deeper.
No, I just think
a lot deeper.
I'm not going to. I'm not. It's just this. It's definitely necessary, and I think that we need to get used to using that word. And it's about lifestyle. Everything is about lifestyle. Like we have to start. When we were children, we were taught to collaborate. We were taught to play well with others. If you had a good friend when you were, 5, 6, 7 years old, whatever was yours was hers. Whatever was hers was yours. At some point in between that teenage years until, the adult, that we don't live like that no more. We understood that we used to call them parties, but it was literally like an excuse for all of us to get together in the corner and eat a bunch of junk food. But if I got $2 and my friend had $2 or some other person got $5, we put all our money together and we go into the store and get as much junk food as we can. Nobody was saying, well, I got $5, so I should get more. Like we understood, on all levels. Well, so-and-so mother got a job, so he can get $5. He gonna have $5. My mother on welfare, so I only get $2. This person, whatever the reason, you got $1, but it didn't matter. Everybody ate the same because we all put our stuff in together and we all were good. I don't know what point of life that came where it was like, nah, we're not collaborating, because when you talk about getting out of a jam and you sitting there with $5 or, usually it's more money than that. You got $5 grand and your jam is 10 grand and the other person got a problem and y'all both can put y'all money together and fix both each other's problem. But you guys will sit there and watch each other struggle.
But do you think
it's crazy?
Do you think that happens organic or naturally when people become adults? Because I think about my children and I think kids still do that to this day. I think the kids still do this because my kids will tell me like, they forgot that something was going on at school where you had to have money, and a friend will buy for them, and then it has happened vice versa.
Yeah.
And not on purpose. And they don't even say, okay, you pay for me this time and I'll pay for you next time. They don't even do that. My girls have shared with me. Do you think that switch flips and turns to that, to this?
Yeah, it's something happening in that adulthood space where, the poison gets put in your brain that sharing and collaborating is not a smart way to get to where you need to get to. And again, especially we understand even more. That's why I want my kids to be in sports as well, because sports, we were taught that we weren't making money off of our sports, but we put our blood, sweat, and tears into it for our band of sisters, a band of brothers that we were playing with. And we, sometimes you had a weak night, but somebody else come and they're going to be the person. And they understood if you got 20 points, I got 20 points, we still won. So if I wasn't hitting my shots tonight, I'm going to make up for it on defense, or I'm going to just be out there and do the best I can do. I'm going to try to play hurt. I'm trying to do everything. That same energy, that's a lifestyle for an athlete. And so that same lifestyle has to come and permeate through everything that you do so that you can grow, because teams grow. Look, Magic Johnson's talking about buying, the Denver Broncos. He said his words was, I'm putting a team together to do that. When he bought the Los Angeles Dodgers, I'm putting a team together so that we can get the Dodgers. Like that's one thing we haven't learned yet. A lot of people are not, they're trying to do it solo, or they're saying this is the thing that, and I told a couple of my good friends this. I told them, because they'll say, well, I'm waiting till I get to a certain point before I can, like, why do we have to be at the same point for us to collaborate? You're needed where you are. You got $500,000, I got $5, but that don't mean I don't have no gifts. I mean, I had no talents. Even if I had to watch your children while you go put that $500,000 to use, that's still a valuable thing. Your children doesn't have a price tag on it. So if you spend a year putting money, $500,000 into a business to let it grow, and you didn't have to worry about your children one time because I was watching them for free, I'm just as much as a partner as anybody else.
I agree. It goes back to that competition, jealousy, envy piece, Jay.
Yeah.
And that is something, and I think I shared with you, Martin Luther King wrote in his book, and I'm not going to quote him, but he touches on this in the very last book that he wrote, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos Our Community. He talks about how infectious, I mean, it infects a community, competition and jealousy.
Yeah.
I mean, it destroys communities.
We had to put that out there. We had to keep talking about that. We have to keep talking about that because our people need to hear it, and it needs to be called out as well. It doesn't have to be called out from a negative space. It just needs to be shown. And I've been doing that myself. I'm in that transitional space as well. And I've just been telling people that I love, like, this is horrible. Because I remember telling a good friend of mine that, I'm transitioning to another city. And I'm like, it sucks that I have very good friends that I haven't done anything with, that we could have put our families in an even better space. But we've all sat back and tried to do our individual things, and we all would have been so much further along if we'd have worked together. And I've said that out loud, like that hurt me, because now that I got knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, I'm like, you dummy, you could have been way further than you are. Way further than where you are. So I'm not going to go into this next phase of my life with that spirit. I'm looking for people to collaborate with. I'm looking for people to give an opportunity. I'm looking for people to know and to have the same spirit that I have, so that we can actually grow and actually show our kids how it's supposed to be done. Because you're right, our children are like that. My daughter's like, hey, my daughter we fought with her, and this is something she probably, she knows, but she has a good friend that she wanted to put in her book, like, thank you. And I said, that's fine. We're curbing it, but not saying, but she loves hard. And she's like, well, if I'm doing this, I got to make sure that she's good too, And I'm like, yeah, you got to make sure she's good. It is not your responsibility. Just understand that's just what you're trying to do. You're not responsible for that. But not, trying to make her feel bad for wanting to be that person. But I want you to motivate her to be great too, because as you guys grow together, you guys will be able to help each other, and nobody's pouring from an empty cup. That's what I want her to understand. So, you kind of feel her, let her feel you, and y'all do it, and y'all grow together. That type of thing. But I love that she has that spirit. And we can't shoot it out of them. I remember it getting shot out of me. I remember it. Like, I remember like it was yesterday. I ate at everybody's house in the neighborhood. But I remember my grandma wouldn't let none of my friends eat at my house. Now, I get it. She had 15 people to feed. I didn't understand that part. I got it now. But I still felt like crap because every one of my friends' parents fed me. Like, they made, is he coming over today? Because he going to eat. But my grandmother didn't articulate it that way. She just was, no, they can't have nothing. So I would, as a friend, I would not eat with them. Eat there. I would eat with them or go someplace else. But she literally would be like, nah, I'm good on that. Like, but I get it now. She had 15 mouths to feed, but it would have been nice for her to say, nah, we got too many people to feed as is, and I would love to feed you, but it's just, it's tough. But she never was articulate like that. And she never, put it so eloquently. She did it in her special way. And I was so embarrassed every time. But you know how young people are. They understand. They just laugh it off and, come on, you can come eat at my house type of thing. But I was grateful to have those type of friends, and they didn't take it personal or tell their parents or something like that. But, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, this has been great. I'm excited. And, we can go all night.
I know.
You guys are getting a taste of what goes on regularly between the two of us, but I think it's a treat for you guys to witness our conversations. Also, something that's very important, the R.A.M Foundation is having this camp starting on June 6th. So tell us about how everybody can register for the camp, some of the things you got planned and the website, all that other good stuff this summer coming up.
So to register for the camp, I'm going to send you to the website. The website is www.R.A.M. Foundation SC. R.A.M. that's R.A.M. Foundation SC like South Carolina .org. www.ramfoundationsc.org. And so you can learn more about who we are, our mission, and register for camp by going to that website. And so 6 weeks out of the summer, our theme for this summer is if they believe it, they can see it. And we're pushing it through the filter of Black authors. Mm. And so we're going to have authors come in every single week to, talk about, their book. I'm going to be, and I say it's because this year, while I'm the CEO of the R.A.M. Foundation now, I'm also going to be the director of the summer program this year as well. And so the kids are going to be exposed to probably well over 100 picture books, authored and illustrated, illustrated by a Black author. Excuse me, let me say, authored by a Black author or illustrated by a Black illustrator. And then, of course, we always take our field trips every year. The kids learn about the Buffalo Soldiers every single year. And so we actually have a Buffalo Soldier chapter right here in South Carolina. And they have a huge, beautiful farm, Greenfield Farms here, right outside of Columbia. And the kids get the chance to ride horses. Of course, they learn about the history of the Buffalo Soldiers, which is historically a Black Army regiment. And so we're going to be doing that. I've mentioned that we're going to be doing the mock trial. I think I said that we did it in the past. So we'll be doing that again. That's it. We're going to the courthouse and the kids to have that experience. I always take them to the State House, Jay. I always,
that's your sanctuary. That's your church.
I'm telling you, I always take them to the State House because I need kids. If they're going to be in my space for 6 weeks out of the summer, I take it as a duty of mine. Those kids know who the governor is. They know who, and I actually still quiz my own children. They're going to know who the governor is. They're going to know who the lieutenant governor is, the state treasurer. They're going to know the secretary of state. And I always make sure that these kids know who their state representatives are and their senator.
That's good. That's great information.
And so, of course, they go to the State House and they learn how a bill is passed legislatively, how the process, idea, subcommittee, committee, floor, and if it passes, it goes to the governor's desk.
There's adults that don't know that, though. There's adults that don't know that information.
But look, before a piece of legislation goes from, so if a piece of legislation is introduced, now I know I'm getting off here, but if a piece of legislation is introduced in the House of Representatives, that whole process has to actually happen for that same piece of legislation in the Senate. So if it goes from the idea to a subcommittee to a committee and passes the House, now they have to send that same piece of legislation over to the Senate, and the Senate have to push it through their subcommittee, and if it doesn't go through subcommittee, they ain't gonna ever get to the committee. But if it goes to subcommittee, it goes to committee. Now they decide whether or not it goes to the Senate floor. So it's a whole process. And my babies at the R.A.M. Foundation, they learn it. And so we go to we always go to the State House. We're going to go to the Supreme Court, the South Carolina Supreme Court as well. And they're going to have an opportunity. I'm not going to put that out there yet because until it is confirmed, but it's going to be amazing. It's going to be an amazing experience for the kids this year. I am really, really excited.
One of the biggest things she neglected to say is that it's totally free.
Oh, that's right. It's absolutely free.
Student. Totally free, 14 years and running, no child is paying for summer camp. So you talk about helping the parent out. That's a blessing and a half.
And breakfast and lunch is also included. And so you talk about collaboration. We partner, we have a local partner who provides our breakfast and our lunch every day, Monday through Friday.
I love it. Amazing.
Yeah. I'm excited. This is going to be and I say it every year, this is going to be our most exciting year yet. But I mean, truly, I am really excited for this year. And I'm going to blow up social media to let people know that these kids, these babies that we have this year for R.A.M, I'm going to show them their unbelievable experience and unbelievable summer.
I love it. Listen, you guys, if you are in the Columbia, South Carolina area, please, ma'am, please, sir, go to the website that she just mentioned. If you're watching right now, you will see it on the screen. Say the website one more time, Deitra.
It's R.A.M Foundation SC.org. R.A.M Foundation SC.org.
And so for my listening people, you guys can hear it multiple times and go to that website. We will be putting this out prior to for you to register. So we're going to put this out immediately so that guys can register, you hear it, and get people to go over there. We're going to get the max amount of people. We want a waiting list so we can get back. The pandemic put everybody off, and I'm happy to have everybody back. I know she was still doing it virtually, but now to get everybody back in front of everybody is going to be a great time. It's a great situation. I participate pretty much every year since I got wind of it, and I will be participating again this year. So you guys take your kids if you can. If you don't already have something situated, go ahead and get with the R.A.M Foundation right now. Spots are filling up fast, so don't miss your opportunity for your child to have an amazing time this summer. You guys know how we do every week here on S.T.A.R.V.E Talk. I told you I was going to upgrade you, so no better than with my sis. And
I don't know about an upgrade. I don't know. They just got a small peek inside of our daily conversation. That was a small peek.
They need it because, a lot of time we talk about business and things like that, but even business owners have to deal with this portion. And I think that the more people know about what goes on from this space, I think they would jump into the business space more knowledgeable. Because again, I didn't know. It was all about how can I feed myself and my family. But now when I start a business or I invest in something, I go in with this knowledge, and it's a different ball game. It's a whole lot easier, honestly. It's better for me going at trying to make a couple dollars. It sounds cute, but man, it's so many more inner workings that can stop you from making those dollars, from policy, from law, from these things that you just don't know. And so now that I do have this knowledge, my business platform has grown so much because I can cut out some of the fat. I can cut out some of those roadblocks that I've been going through all my life trying to be an entrepreneur. So I appreciate you always pouring into me. And thank you so much for pouring into my people, because they need it. I know they need it. I know they're going to appreciate it. I got, an audience that definitely says, hey, I love the people that you bring on. And I'll do it on purpose. I want the people to get something. A lot of time people just want to hear themselves talk, and they want other people to hear themselves talk. But I want you to get something out of when you hearing me talk and the people that you hear me interact with. So I pray that you guys enjoyed it. I know that you did, but stay tuned. You know how to find us, www.iwontstarve.com, www.jhaleem.com. Go to S.T.A.R.V.E Talk on YouTube and subscribe and click the notification bell. If you are a listener, go ahead and get that. It comes out on every Wednesday. You will get a new podcast here. So look out for this one coming up. Until then, see you next time.
I'm in the studio with J Haleem.
And I'm in the studio with J Haleem.
I am in the studio with J Haleem.
I am in the studio with J Haleem. I'm in the studio with J Haleem.
You are now in the studio with J Haleem.